Hi, I'm Ann Cortez, the District Director for the South District. Our integrity story this year is entitled Car Accident. This client suffered a traumatic car accident in 2018. He was bedbound and nonverbal. In September of 2019, his mother removed him from the hospital and took him home against medical advice. The client required 24-hour care, and there were allegations that the mother was not feeding him correctly. He needed wound care. He was sleeping in an old hospital bed. There were roaches in his diaper, and the home was cluttered and dark. The caseworker not only had to be the voice for the client, but also the mother, who was the AP. He showed the mother respect in her belief that she could and was willing to care for her client at home. He took the time to listen to her story, observe how she cared for him, and see the client's response to how she was meeting his needs. He worked at building rapport with her by bringing donated diapers, bed liners to alleviate some of the cost in medical supplies. He watched as she fed him, changed him, and provided wound care for him. The caseworker made referrals so that the client could get the maximum benefits under the STAR Plus programs. He helped the mother set up doctor appointments. He assisted in purchasing the needed medications. The client's doctor set him up with a new hospital bed, skilled care at home, 7 days a week, and a referral for provider services. During the investigation, the client and his mother received an eviction notice. The caseworker found out that the landlord was no longer willing to have older mobile homes in his park and would no longer renew the lease. She, along with other residents, went to court but did not win. The new report was made on the allegations of eviction and concerns with the care that she was providing her son. The client's mother was now his provider, so Health and Human Services Provider Investigations handled that piece of the new referral, while Adult Protective Services handled the eviction process. Because of the caseworker's ability to work well in the community, he had available resources to assist with the new issue. APS had several other community agencies work together to house both the client and the mother temporarily, find another RV park, pay for some of the moving expenses, and get settled in. Later, the client's new doctor commended the mother for her care that she was providing the client. His bed sore was completely healed, and his G-tube was removed. The doctor was amazed at his recovery. His mother expressed her sincere appreciation for all that the caseworker did for her and her son. Please help me welcome our core value winner for integrity, Tim Broom from the South District.
Our safety story this year is entitled Cycle of Abuse. The client has survived in a cycle of abuse for several years. She is 80 years old. She lives with her spouse and her son, who is 53. Her son suffers from schizophrenia and has been in and out of mental institutions for most of his life. He is physically and emotionally abusive to the client. In the past, she has suffered broken bones, concussions, fear, and isolation at the hands of her son. The client has refused services because she does not want her son in jail. She also only wants him to receive appropriate mental health treatment. On April 14th, the APS specialist received a case with yet another allegation of abuse to the client by her son. This time, he slammed her against the floor, causing her to fracture her left wrist. When the APS specialist called the client, her spouse answered the phone and stated she just fell to the ground. He added that she has delusions and that her son did not do anything to her. Her spouse continued to hang up on the specialist. The APS specialist confirmed with the doctor that the client does not have delusions, and in fact, her son did throw the client to the ground, causing her injuries. The client's spouse does not want his son to go to jail and concocted the story that the client just fell. The APS specialist was being aware of the past refusals of services and the current interference with the spouse, knew she needed to speak to the client alone and in a neutral environment where she would feel comfortable speaking. The specialist convinced the doctor's office to call the client and arrange for an appointment as soon as possible. They made the appointment on April 21st to set up a neutral place for the specialist and the client to speak. On the day of the appointment, the APS specialist found out that the client's spouse also made an appointment with the doctor. She was informed that he always makes an appointment at the same time so that she does not go into the exam room without him. Staff at the doctor's office told the husband he could not go into the exam room for this appointment, and the specialist was finally able to speak with the client alone. The client told the specialist that her son was yelling at her and cursing and then threw her to the ground. After she got up, her wrist was in a lot of pain, but her son made her make him tortillas. Her son nor her spouse would take her to the doctor for a week because they did not want her to tell about what had been done to her. The APS specialist called in the police and the county judge to the doctor's office. The client retold the same story. In the room, they agreed that she needed to go down to the police station to make a report. Together, they all determined an emergency detention order was necessary to help her son, and a 60-day protective order was needed to protect the client. After the meeting, the APS specialist convinced the angry spouse that the client needed to be taken to the police department. The spouse agreed, and the specialist followed them to see the service plan through. The APS specialist showed an awareness of the family's dynamics and ensured a safe environment was set up for the client to be able to comfortably tell her story. The specialist listened to her and asked her what she wanted. She was able to bring in the police and the judge to hear the client's story in the same safe place. Together, they all determined a plan that the client was comfortable with. Her dilemma was that her own child was also her abuser. The specialist respected this, and in the end, the client owned her own service plan and followed through. Please help me welcome our Core Value Award winner for safety, Roxana Aguilera from the Northwest District. Our dignity story this year is entitled Handyman. Our client is an 82-year-old man who has lived and worked most of his life in the United States. He worked as a handyman to make a little money here and there until he developed cataracts, which resulted in total blindness in the right eye and partial blindness in the left. The effects of the cataracts left him unable to work, unable to provide for his basic needs, and a significant decline in his ability to provide for himself. He was living in a home with no utilities. He had no identification card, no social security card, and no birth certificate. Without these documents, he was unable to apply for any resources. The APS specialist was assigned the task to resolve the client's neglectful situation. The client assured APS that he was a citizen and was born in Texas. The specialist went to the Social Security Administration and was informed that he was a citizen, had worked the required 40 quarters, and therefore qualified for a small check each month. The client wanted to go to a nursing home for care. After admitting to the nursing home informed him that, unfortunately, he was not a citizen, and therefore he could not qualify for long-term Medicaid. The APS specialist worked hard finding an advocate for the client who specialized in immigration issues. She ultimately contacted the Mexican consulate, where she found much needed help. Despite the client's eventually admitting he was born in Mexico, the Mexican consulate was unable to find any record of his being a Mexican citizen. Representatives from the consulate met with the client, Adult Protective Services, and the nursing home staff. They had the client sign a document declaring he was born in Mexico so it could be filed, making him a legal citizen of Mexico. The consultants laid out all available options to him. The only suitable option was for him to move into an appropriate care facility that could meet his needs in Mexico. The client was fearful and hesitant to go back to Mexico. He is in his 80s and had not been to Mexico since he was a child. He is also blind. He did not want to be in a different country and be blind. They thoughtfully laid out a plan to find an eye surgeon to remove the cataracts in his eyes once he arrived in Mexico. and found him a safe place to live. He was agreeable. The consultants from the Mexican consulate explained that they could not pick up the client to take him to Mexico. He had to meet them at the border. At this point, the service plan was in place and the APS specialist took action. The Mexican consulate set up and paid for an eye exam while the client was still in Texas. It was determined that the client had cataracts and surgery would likely result in regaining his eyesight. The specialist found that a local Lions Club worked with a doctor in Acuña, Mexico, who performed eye surgeries. She communicated this with the consulate. Jointly, the local Lions Club and the consulate agreed to pay for the surgery to remove the cataracts. Meanwhile, the consulate found an appropriate facility for the client in Acuña, and they also found a pension to be paid to him so he would have an income. The APS specialist visited with the client the day before they planned to depart for Mexico. She assured him that she and a paid attendant would be with him all the way to Mexico to meet with the Mexican consulate at the border. She assured him that he would not be detained or found to be a criminal for the situation he was in. Her assurances comforted him for his journey to his new home. The next day, they drove to the Mexican border where they met with the Mexican consultants. They safely took on the appropriate casework and care, ensuring all the client's needs were met and followed through with, including the cataract surgery. Later, the APS specialist received a message from the Mexican consulate telling her that they appreciated her work, the dignity that she had given the client throughout this entire process. Please help me welcome our Core Value Award winner for dignity, Ernie Dotson from the Northwest District.
Our respect story this year is entitled Roaming the Streets. Our APS caseworker received a P1 intake that indicated 2 siblings with IDD were located by the police roaming the streets with no supervision. The APSS arrived at the home shortly after receiving the intake and found the clients to be wearing dirty and soiled clothing. The home was deplorable, roach infested with an inoperable toilet, feces were on the floor of the home, and in addition, there was an inoperable refrigerator containing rotten food. The siblings appeared to be locked inside the home, as was evident by the locks the worker observed on the doors. The father, the AP, came to the home and agreed the siblings could be placed in a boarding home temporarily. The father agreed to the placement, but after months, the father decided to pick the clients up from the placement without notice. At the time, APS did not have a court order, so the clients could return to the AP. The caseworker went above and beyond trying to locate the clients to ensure their safety. The caseworker went to the AP's home numerous times, and she made more than the required visits to locate the clients. The caseworker finally located the clients, and once again, the clients were found home alone and in a state of neglect. This time, the caseworker was able to complete an after-hours removal. The clients are currently back at the group home where their needs are being met and are awaiting guardianship. Throughout this process, the caseworker showed respect to all the parties involved. Although the father of the clients called the caseworker derogatory names and was uncooperative to the point of yelling and screaming, the caseworker respected his input and his reasoning. Simultaneously, the caseworker showed respect for the clients by including them, their needs and well-being in the service planning, and ultimately making the decisions that were best for the clients. Throughout the investigation, the caseworker fought tirelessly for her clients, and she showed compassion towards the father while ensuring that the needs, safety, and security of the clients was respected. The caseworker's level of respect toward the clients was evident by her insistence to communicate with them. The clients have severe to moderate IDD. She always made a point to communicate directly with them in a manner they were able to understand. She treated them with the utmost respect. The caseworker sought out donations for the clients for toys that they enjoyed playing with to make their transition to a new living environment easier. The caseworker's efforts could fall under many of the core values, but ultimately, the respect that this caseworker showed for the clients and the father culminated in an outcome of the clients being in an environment where they can be healthy and thrive as young men in safety, security, and without any restrictions. The caseworker's action showed an unbelievable amount of respect for the quality of life of her clients. Please help me welcome our Core Value Award winner for respect, Renee Harris from the DFW District.
Hello, my name is Diana Perez, and I'm the District Director for the Austin-El Paso District. I am pleased to announce the award winner for the Collaborate story this year. Our Collaborate story this year is entitled Larger Trust. APSS received a case on a 78-year-old female client regarding exploitation against her son. The client had a large trust, lacked capacity, and her son had complete access of all of it. The AP was a well-known Brotherhood gang member and was known to be dangerous throughout the county. There were concerns not only for the safety of the client, but also the safety of the APS worker. The worker was able to obtain bank records and quickly discovered that not only was the son exploiting his mother out of thousands of dollars each month, but his ex-wife was also using his funds to live off of as well. With the help of the investigator through the police department, the worker soon discovered that the son and daughter-in-law were purchasing cars, weapons, drugs, and were draining the accounts each month. The client was kept at home with no access to other family or friends. The worker also discovered that the guardianship and POA paperwork that the son claimed he had were not valid, and the son had no legal authority over the client's resources. As investigators worked closely with APS, all parties agreed that the district attorney had enough to issue an arrest warrant for the son's arrest. They would be charging the son with exploitation of an elderly person, and they wanted to move quickly. Since she knew the client would not be able to live alone, the worker began to reach out to family for a long-term plan. The client's granddaughter stepped in to help to arrange a safe place for her grandmother. The worker also worked with the client's bank and trust to ensure that once he was arrested, the son and his ex-wife would have no access to the client's resources again. Due to the son being violent and having weapons, the police department, Texas Rangers, and SWAT team planned the date to issue the warrant for the son's arrest. APS was instructed that once the son was arrested, she could enter the home and have EMS transfer the client to a hospital where her granddaughter would be waiting for her. The worker followed the client to the hospital where she was reunited with her granddaughter and was later placed in a nursing home near her granddaughter's home. The worker made sure that the client's accounts were taken care of, a protective order was issued to prevent the son from accessing the accounts, and verified that all the client's needs would be met. The son is still awaiting his day in court and has no access to the client any longer. The collaborative efforts of APS, law enforcement, financial institutions, EMS, and the district attorney's office helped ensure the safety of our client. Please help me welcome our Core Value Award winner for Collaborate, Nancy Franz Chavarria from the Austin-El Paso District. Thank you.